Welcome, friends. So glad to have you with us for another live success story. So, I want to introduce you to John. And the reason that we're talking to John is because I really feel like many of his experiences and his steps along the path to his new job will really mirror some chapters in your story. And this is what I continually endeavor to do, friends, is show you people who are just like you, who had the experiences that you had, who were in the same places that you were. Now they've come out on the other side and they are happy. So, with no further preamble, I'm going to let John just go ahead and take us away. So, the first question is, can you please share your good news with us?
Sure, Jules. I was hired. So I started on August 1st and with an ad agency local in Nashville that handles companies, firms as clients throughout the United States. So yeah, very happy that I'm back on the saddle.
Wonderful, wonderful. We love that. We love that. All right, now let's go to the beginning. What was happening right before, you and I got together? What was going on with your job search? So let us know kind of the steps in that story in the first place, please.
Sure. So like it happens to many of us, I had the rug pulled out from under me. And the company I was with for the last 12 years had layoffs across the US, and I was one of them. And so at that time, I really wanted a little bit of downtime just to catch up on rest and uh, get the burnout shaken out. But then that's when I started to search for some support in terms of getting my resume updated, LinkedIn best practice. Um, it had been 12 years, so I needed to shake off the cobwebs and wanted to just get some advice along the way. So entered Jewel. That was wonderful, and uh, also during that process, I was fortunate that a colleague of mine was with a startup and said, "Hey, we could use some consulting." So it was good because it was outside a little bit in my non-comfort zone. I haven't done contract work before as a consultant, so it was good. I was able to teach myself and then share that out with them, and also make some money in between um, while doing that while I was still job searching and keeping my brain sharp and keeping me active. So I was really fortunate to be able to land a consulting job and proceed in that direction while I sat in on your calls weekly and went through your program.
Okay, so let's talk about some of that process that you and I went through together. So then obviously the first thing that we worked on was the resume. So how did you find that process and that conversation in the first place? And then after you're done talking about that, we'll talk about what you thought about the actual resume itself. But how did you like that process of getting together to even build the resume in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it takes, I just have to go through and do what I call my SOAR stories, SOAR, where I look at, explain success stories throughout my career. So in the last job, I would think of what were the scenarios of those. That's the S. I would think of what were my obstacles I was up against. What action did I take? And that's the A. And the R is what results did I get? And so I was just able to put together kind of a list of uh, what I considered accomplishments throughout the last 12 years. It was a little challenging because you're in the rat race during that time and you don't always take a pause to celebrate the wins. You're already on to the next thing, and it's hard, especially over 12 years, to recall everything. So I just went through and was able to get, six or seven highlights and deliver that, and you made the rest easy.
So, one of the things, friends, that I really want to emphasize is that listen to John talk about the source stories, the accomplishments. And one of the things that's very important to bear in mind is that, your resume is not about your jobs. It's not about your duties. It's not about your responsibilities. No one's interested in that. Your resume needs to highlight three core pillars. They are who you are, what you do, and the value that you bring. Those are the three main pillars. And then we support those pillars, a couple dozen times with one accomplishment after the next, after the next, after the next. So that's what John put together. And that's what I factored into to become the building blocks of his resume. So, John, tell us how you felt and what you thought when you saw the finished resume product. What kind of was on your mind in that moment?
Well, the first thing was relief, because I thought it was a strong resume, and I was happy to have that tool. It's a have to have, and something that I thought would track well with AI these days, and search engines, and machines, as well as humans that look at resumes. So I just thought it was encompassing and was set up in a good way to quickly deliver those resumes as I needed to.
Here's another important point, friends. Your resume needs to speak to the technology, the AI, the scanners. That's definitely important. But what John is talking about here is the importance of your resume also speaking to human beings. And what you have to understand is that your resume is really going through two layers. One is the technology. That's why it has to speak to the technology. It has to pass through that technology to even make it to a human being. And once you get there, that's not a robot. So you have to speak like a human being because your audience ultimately is a human being. So when I put the resume together, it's bearing kind of these two layers in mind. There's no real concept, friends, of just kind of getting AI to write your resume. That's not going to work because when it's written by a robot, it's not going to speak to a human being. And a human being is your end user. That's your ultimate audience that you want to bear in mind. Okay. So then, John, the next step that kind of goes hand in hand with the resume is going to be LinkedIn. So I did your LinkedIn profile. Tell me about what you thought when you saw that, the results that came from that. Talk about that a little bit, please.
Sure. I've had a premium subscription for a while to LinkedIn, which is helpful even when you're not looking for a job, but also especially helpful when you are looking for a job. And this just happened to be during a time where jobs are plentiful, so I didn't have a shortage of places to reach out. The biggest challenge was continuing to look inward on what do I really want to do. Just because my learnings over the last 12 years have put me in a certain direction, does that mean I still want to do that? And if I don't want to do that, then what would it take to go in a different direction? And so with LinkedIn, it's nice because you know how many times you're being viewed. It also captured, highlights and milestones and successes of my career. And it was very easy. I mean, you just took the keys and updated it for me, and then it was there. So that was another thing that was really helpful. Of course, I had a LinkedIn page running and going. I had some things, but it gave me time to finally think about, outside of work, the nonprofit work I do or the civic organizations I work with, and just adding some of the whistles and bells into it so I could really kind of tell the story more.
Now, take us back to something that you just mentioned as far as can you share with us some of your thought process in kind of settling on, okay, what is it that I really want to do? How did you arrive at that decision?
Yeah, I've never given up on being an astronaut or a cowboy, but those things are tough to come by. So I, what I, the way I look at it is it's not so much work as work. There's always going to be things that we get frustrated about or are challenges, or we just want to go and take a nap because work is challenging and no matter where you are. So I don't look at it so much from a perspective of I want to find something I'm passionate about. Rather, I look at something that I can say, I can be proud of doing this, but I will find my passions within the job itself. And those passions are different for different people. But for me, my passion happens to be people. So like the company I went with is just I'm fans of the people, and I'm working with a great group of people, and they also give back to the community. And it's something I'm proud of, and something that I can find passions within my job. Also, I want it to support my passions. So what I do outside of work, got to have a paycheck to do your passions, and keep up with your hobbies. So I don't look at it from a perspective of I want to find something that I love to do, and then I'm like, oh boy, it's tough, to find that. I mean, I'm not going to get paid to just work out and play guitar during the day. There's no jobs for that. So I just wanted to find something because I know that I can find the passions within it.
Tell us about the time frame from when you became aware of this opportunity until when you got the offer.
Sure. So the I was the layoff happened in April, and then I did consulting for a month. The consulting is really what led to it, because although I was getting my resumes out and was warming up some leads and looking at things, nothing truly excited me that much. Wasn't that concerned about it because, as I said, I will find the passions within the job itself once I get there. But I made a phone call to a company that I used to work with and to some colleagues. The job I had, 12 years ago before the previous one, and I called to get some advice, also to see if they had any collateral that I could look at and things to help with my client that I was consulting. And so during the course of that conversation, they said, well, hey, have you ever thought about coming back here? And I said, well, not until now. And from that point forward, it was within probably a week that I got a call from the head of operations of the company, and we met up for lunch. And then maybe a week later, where I went in and interviewed with the president of the company. Um, and then, yeah, it started August 1st. There was probably about 2 week span from working through making sure that everything was good on salary and on how the setup was going to be for me entering until the day I started. So, from I don't remember the exact date in April, but between April to all the way until August 1st was kind of my in between time.
Excellent, excellent. What would you advise people who are job searching right now if they're even thinking about getting professional help? What would you say based on the benefits that you saw in your own experience?
Yeah, I think there are things in life that you should always invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is your health, if it's working out, if you need to pay for whatever it is it takes to get you to work out, whether that's a trainer, or if you're disciplined, a gym, or just the right clothes to wear to be outdoors, whatever it may be. And the same thing with career. Invest in yourself. Get the premium. Um, these things, none of these things, and your hobbies, not very many are cheap. But a career is what leads to a paycheck. So, invest in that so that you can be equipped and be the best that you can be. Because we all juggle a lot of things in life. It's not something that we can all work on 24/7. So getting that extra leg up and that extra help is, I would definitely recommend it.
John, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I would just ask the last question. You're in the job. How does it feel?
I'm very happy to be in the job. Um, those passions that I look for are there, and um, just really, it's challenging because I'm drinking from a fire hose, and even though I've worked there 12 years ago, new things they've grown. But yeah, very happy.
Wonderful. Okay, friends, another success story. John, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Friends, thank you for joining me for another episode. I will see you next time.